rather late arrival because I was having intense discussions with President Samuel Ruto because we decided to enhance our bilateral relations to one of strategic partnership based on trust and creating new mechanisms where we can work in all fields of endeavor, research, science, semiconductor, agriculture. And we did give some particular focus on education and research. And I think it is timely, therefore, to have this collaboration. And I thank the colleagues who have taken this initiative with the support of the Ministry of Education and also Nora, Somalia, not too far away. And you see, our endeavor is, of course, to promote this understanding and encourage and inculcate the right habits through education. And it's a different arrangement. I can assure you on behalf of Malaysia that this is a partnership. And as you realize, and we share these values, which is very close to the aspirations of Kenyans and Africans. The education is not just a matter of assimilation of knowledge. It's not a matter of acquisition of knowledge, but the dissemination of truth. So it is strongly embedded in values, you see. And I think if you look at the deficit, either in the issue of governance or political system, it is the deficit of values. We inculcate understanding, or what is termed in Arabic, lazzatul ma'arifah, the love for scholarship, but sometimes we forget the fact that it is also to disseminate what is honor, what's dignity, what is considered to be the attempt to inculcate the right values and ethics. Now, I'm saying this because I followed some of the works of your great intellectuals. And I happen to be a great friend of Ali Mazrui, who epitomizes this desire to inculcate and enhance the quality of education, but not disregarding the importance of values and ethics, the promotion of freedom and justice. And we are, of course, immediately reminded of Jomo Kenyatta, who played an exceptional, critical role in the country's history. But apart from an iconic figure in the struggle for freedom against the gross atrocities and injustices of colonization, and through his Mau Mau uprising, you can guess my age, we were all in that period, so looking in awe of these great leaders, Kenyatta, and earlier on Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, Julius Nyerere. You'll be surprised. I'm from Malaysia, I'm a remote village in Malaysia, but we follow with such respect because these are outstanding voices who had vision for their country and who cannot tolerate this continued subjugation of men and women. And the rest is, of course, history. And of course, I said Ali Mazrui, a towering scholar, you know, a Kenyan. I knew more about Kenya from him. And his vast contribution to African studies, his classic documentary, I think BBC, on Africa, and his battle with the BBC because of the general attitude of prejudice and denigration of Africa, which he detests strongly. And so that was my initial encounter with Kenya. But still, is through scholarship, is through knowledge and education. And now we're talking about interdisciplinary approach. And we have now to accept the fact that whilst culture and history is still pivotal understanding to maintain our identity and dignity, which were robbed through colonization, because as you are also familiar with Ngugi wa Thigo's decolonization of the mind and his recent decolonization of the language, which I have not read. I have read the decolonization of the mind as a brilliant work by a Kenyan scholar who understands the meaning of colonization to follow the works of Ibn Khaldun, Frantz Fanon, about colonization, its impact, and losing the identity. Now, I'm talking about education, Julia, not politics. But it's important because whilst we're craving, in Malaysia, for example, both we have Ministry of Education, Higher Education, I emphasize this point. The love of scholarship, yes. New technology, we cannot lose out. We have to get our students to master artificial intelligence and digital transformation and this new energy transition, because that would, there are fundamentals in terms of economic development and progress. But we cannot lose sight of human dignity, value and ethics. We cannot see education from the prism of the thinking of the Western capitals. We are Africans or Asians or Muslims or Christians or Buddhists or Hindus, but we have to retain our identity and dignity. Now, so it's an evolving process. We are fortunate that because of this traction and achievement, Malaysia now has become quite an attraction for foreign students. I think we have close to about 150,000 foreign students in Malaysia. And to me, as I reminded both the public universities and the private universities, it's not pure commercialization of education. Yes, there are commercial considerations, but always remember that it is to inculcate knowledge, the right understanding, but also the right ethics and values. So this forum is timely because it compels us to confront our challenges honestly while embracing the vast possibilities. I've referred to the issue of new technology. It's a major challenge to the academia. The professors here, I happen to have changed my discipline into the issue of governance. But you understand that the challenge is huge. We have disciplines like digitalization or semiconductor or AI, and we cannot assume to be able to grasp this if we follow the old rules in our ministries. When I set up the AI faculty, I told them, do it now. But faculties are not set up that way because we inherit the system. You know, you have a department, then the faculty, then the Board of Studies, then the Senate, then the Ministry of Education. Well, it takes 8 months. By then, the AI has already transformed. So which means it has to begin tomorrow and have qualified personnel who have that vision, the understanding, and more importantly, that humility, which is lacking also, not only among political leaders, but also among some academicians. The humility to acknowledge that whilst we have imbibed and acquired this knowledge, there are new disciplines that demand a very challenging, fast change because of the nature of the sciences. We are fortunate in Malaysia because we have embarked on this issue of semiconductor much earlier and becomes a hub in the region for data centers and AI, from NVIDIA to Infineon to Google and Microsoft having major centers there. But I said the condition is that they collaborate with our universities. It doesn't make sense. It is not a colonial aspirations where you expect cheap water, energy, and cheap labor. Those days are gone. That's why this collaboration between Malaysia and Kenya, or Africa and Asia, is to me is pivotal. Because we can then dictate and demand a more fair, just arrangements. And so I'm, as I said to President Ruto this morning, I'm delighted to be here because it's a great country with a great potential, and neighbors. We have Somalia, Tanzania. I'm going to mention Sudan for now. But inshallah, we can resolve. We may have some strong position on President Trump, but we all hope that he can interfere and resolve this. And as I told him personally when he was in Kuala Lumpur last month, I said it took President Trump to then compel parties to at least settle the first phase of the Gaza conflict. Although there's just a first phase, there's no justice yet until you have legitimate, you recognize the legitimate aspirations of a colonized people, and part of Gaza, the West Bank, is still being colonized. And to me, it's clear hypocrisy, and this relates to my understanding of education. What do you teach in these various colleges and top universities in the world? We grew up to be strong believers in human dignity and freedom. How is it that after all this elaborate, sophisticated understanding and disciplines, we condone oppression, exploitation, man by man, and colonization, strong prejudices because of color difference of religious beliefs? To me, totally unacceptable. That is why I rejoice and this sort of friendship, because we promote this voice of reason, voice of conscience, and that's what we mean and aspire in terms of education. Yes, of course, we can't lose out. Therefore, new disciplines are important. New technologies must be grasped with full force, and we need to learn from you. Yes, some disciplines, and you need to learn from us. Yes, certainly we do. And because we do not believe in this sort of a condescending colonial mindset, we have decided now that the collaboration with Africa is stronger to set up the Institute of African Studies. And I think Kenya has a great role to play. We have produced outstanding scholars in this field, and we will certainly appreciate some scholars from universities to spend their sabbatical leave in Malaysia at some cost, of course, by us and partly by Julius. So that we have a powerful Institute of African Studies, not in the capitals of Europe and the West, but in the capitals of Asia or Latin America. So other than that, of course, cultural exchanges, but let me conclude by saying this, that education is spiritual. There's no way we can emerge and be more successful without that social mobility. Malaysia had some very effective affirmative policies and programs. There are excesses when it comes to business operations. You allow for people who are probably not less qualified or incompetent. So there has been, of course, this critical debate, polemics, on affirmative action. But in terms of education, no question. The children from the poorest communities have emerged as new professionals, engineers, or doctors, or teachers because of the opportunity given in education. So to my mind, it is not only in terms of acquisition of knowledge, but also to ensure that there is this mobility, the social mobility, and to close the inequity, and the gap between the ruling elite and the masses. So, whatever is deemed to be necessary, it is, can please be rest assured that Malaysia is not giving places just for, commercial considerations, period, no. As we have seen many of our enterprise, like Petronas, for example, the moment Petronas sets into one country, immediately the young professionals, the engineers were brought in to Kuala Lumpur, to the university, Petronas University, for specialized upskilling, training, so that the moment we operate, you can find locals from these countries take over many of these roles. We have to learn and also unlearn the practices of many of the enterprises in the West that go there for cheap labor and, of course, the facilities, and to exploit. So I must thank you for this initiative and wish you well. And Malaysia has always been your friend, but now I think in my 2 days meeting with the President, we have decided to cement that relationship, give meaning to what effective collaboration is between the two great countries in the South, and to showcase to the world what collaboration, trust means. And it is up to you to help to ensure that we execute this plan. And anything goes wrong, then blame Cabinet Secretary Julius. So we say terima kasih again. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Wassalamualaikum.